Nothing ruins a tender new relationship like an agenda. If you rush in with someone with a big plan for how you want it to turn out, you can completely miss the information that they're giving you about who they are, what they want, and how they feel about you. Now, maybe you project on someone that they're perfect, or that they're marriage material, or maybe it's your timeline, how fast things should happen in your mind, what's got to happen on that first date and the second date. Maybe that's what you're projecting on people. But agendas make a person very intense and not present. And most people, especially the healthy ones, will pull back from that. If you had childhood trauma and it's driving you to be super fixed on where you want this relationship to be, then the other person's recoiling will be very triggering for you. It'll confuse your perception about what just happened, and it'll trigger abandonment stuff that might make you attach even harder to the person who just pushed you away. Maybe you do this. I call it eroticizing rejection. My letter today is from a man I'll call Jason, and he writes, "Hey, I'm 31 and I met Ginny, who's 25, 3 months ago through online dating. I quickly took the initiative and I organized a dinner date. She was my dream girl, almost everything I wanted in a partner. All right, I've got the fairy pencil. I'm going to circle things I want to come back to, but right now I'm just going to read through so we can find out what Jason is saying, and then I'll come back and talk about it. All right. I was a little nervous, but nowhere near as nervous as she was. She was so beautiful, but yet the most shy person I'd ever met. Things went well, but I could tell kissing was too much for her at the end of the date. After the second date, I went for it, and she was very frozen and shy about it, so I cut it short. Even still, texting later that night, she seemed happy and excited to meet again. She kept apologizing for being so awkward and said it had been a very long time since she had dated. On the third date, we talked a bit deeper, and I realized more and more she was the kind of girl I liked a lot due to her values and upbringing. But then she hinted toward an abusive ex and some trauma. She also told me that she had terrible self-esteem over her teeth, but had since got veneers, and they were perfect now. She'd often remarked that she had to take things slow, but I had sworn I saw plenty of subtle cues of interest, such as playing with her hair, not pulling away from a gentle hand on her lower back, and that kind of stuff. I thought the first kiss had been too public, so I tried to do it more privately at the end of the third date. But as I moved in for a goodbye kiss, she was nervously chatting about other stuff, trying to distract from the pressure, I think. And then she blurted out stuff about not feeling it and getting friend vibes from me. I felt like I'd been slapped in the face and confused. I hadn't seen it that way at all based on her previous messages and behavior. I messed up, though, by showing too much emotion. I was processing it as we were talking, and I guilt-tripped her sarcastically at first, but then I got genuinely really sad at the end. I was in disbelief. As I was leaving my car, I could see her crying in her car. I drove home in total confusion, like I was having a breakdown. The next day, I tried to ask her what had happened because I was so confused. I got big text messages back just saying it wasn't anything I did, she just wasn't ready to date after all. I stupidly made things even worse, thinking I had been too soft with her, not pushed things enough. Generally, I sent a couple of really stupid texts that I regret because it just pushed her further away. It's been months, and I have been learning as much as possible about my own poor behavior and attraction dynamics. I've always had success with women in the past, but recently, now more than ever. I've been dating a few that I quite like, but the honest truth is that I think about Ginny every day. I want her more than anyone, and I don't want to imagine my life where I never get another chance to be with her. I'm ashamed to admit that I cried a lot when alone and wondered what was wrong with me or what could I have done differently. The more reading I've done, the more I've wondered if this is me having limerent behavior and chasing someone who's fearful, avoidant, or emotionally unavailable as some sort of test of my self-worth. I grew up with an alcoholic father, and neither parent showed us much physical love or encouragement. I've always felt like I'm seeking their approval. Am I a total mess, and why can't I forget about this girl and just move on? I meet other girls who are more keen on me and passionately reciprocal, yet I find myself more attracted to Ginny and thinking about her all the time. Okay, Jason, I'm so glad you wrote. I think I can help. You met 3 months ago, online dating. It only went for a few dates. You quickly organized a dinner date. Good job. She was your dream girl. All right, right there. I know that that's common language and people say it all the time, but just because of the particular flavor of your CPTSD, I would like to suggest that you flag yourself when you say somebody's like magic or dream girl. So what it is she had a lot of characteristics that you loved. You say almost everything I wanted in a partner, but you can't possibly know that when you first meet somebody. One of the things that I know you want in a partner is that they would really, really love you. So she didn't have the most important thing that would make a relationship possible. So I'm just saying that as people with CPTSD with an attachment wound, this thing where you couldn't get that approval and connection and love from your parents, that is really going to do a number on how you choose people and how you interpret what's going on. And there's this feeling I get from you, this is just a feeling, but it's this, you seem as if somebody who had to really figure out, like, how are you supposed to act? And then you do that you're having trouble, like, operating out of your true feelings. I see a lot of true feeling here. It's not that you can't feel, but that you're sort of constructing what an appropriate person is like. And I totally get it. Like, I've had to do that too, because, I mean, in my case, I was basically feral when I was getting into early relationships. And so I think that for a lot of people who ever dated me, there was a disappointment coming up because I couldn't really consistently be this person I was trying to present myself as. But we do that because there's such a lack of confidence in our own perception, in our own worth, and that would definitely go along with not getting approval. So you had this first date and it was awkward. You knew that you could tell that kissing was too much. And you know, people have very different opinions about this. And sometimes if there's a huge attraction, people can just kiss right away. Sometimes kissing is way inappropriate in the first 3 dates. It's so dependent on the people and the situation and the vibe and what the goal of those people is. And so kissing, you know, it's customary to think of kissing as no big deal, but there's like, you know, there's all this stuff about courtship and getting to know somebody. And if sex is here, kissing is like here. It's actually quite close. So another thing that I'm going to recommend to you, because you're somebody with CPTSD and because you may very likely end up dating women with CPTSD or who have, you know, they have a fragility around their boundaries and about getting close or intimate or sexual. That's common, and especially in traumatized people, and we do tend to attract each other, right? And so just that, for you, I would say words. There is no substitute for words. Now, I get it. I totally have enjoyed the experience of being swept off my feet wordlessly before, but that's rarely turned out well. My marriage, for example, started with months of talking, finally dating, many, many dates. Kissing didn't happen for many, many dates. And it was so careful and measured, and it was so different than what I was used to, where you're supposed to just go really fast. The only way you can know if somebody's interested in you is to be kissing, making out, having sex. That's not the only way. And if you have these attachment wounds, by slowing things down. If you take my dating course, Jason, you know, and I really encourage you to do that, if you slow things down, you can really, like, your senses will activate, your perception. Our perception was damaged by CPTSD, by the experiences we had as kids. We have trouble reading people. We have to, like, you know, read websites and watch YouTube videos to go, like, how are you supposed to do this? And that's good, that's fine. But when you're learning it, a lot of times you're going to get, like, other people rules, people who don't have CPTSD. For us, going slow gives us a little more time to establish that communication about, like, how does she like you? Even if she's touching her hair or letting you touch her back, does that mean anything? How would she feel about things going forward? There's, you know, words are your friend here. They are your friend. And in case you've watched, like, instructions for men about how you shouldn't do that and you should just be assertive, I just think, I don't know, there may be a time for that. But when you say that you knew that kissing was too much for her, that was you being perceptive. And if it was too much on the first date, I think the wise thing would be to go slow. But here's the thing, Jason, you're so worried you did something wrong. If it were right, you guys would have overcome it. I don't think that you should be so hard on yourself that somehow you did something wrong if you had just not made this misstep. I don't know what you did. So here, let's go through what you say about it. So third date, you just got more and more into her. You realized she was what you wanted, and her values, her upbringing, which says to me she was really looking like marriage material to you, and you're 31. That's a really appropriate thing to be thinking about. But then she hinted about having an abusive ex and some trauma. So yeah, some of us have had that, and that she had low self-esteem over her teeth. And I think you're bringing these things up, not because they were any kind of deal breaker, but to try to understand why she was awkward or shy or kind of freaked out when you did kiss her. And she had often remarked that she had to take things slow. So there you had it. She said, I need to take things slow. But you swore you saw plenty of subtle cues of interest. So she may have been interested. And again, I don't think like everything was perfect and then you blew it, all right? But just for the sake of looking at the parts of a date, interest, being interested in somebody doesn't mean necessarily that you want to go fast. It means you're interested. And so for a person who goes slow, it means they want to see you again, all right? And spend more time together. So she didn't pull away from a hand on her lower back, but I would just point out, it's possible she really didn't like that, but if you pull away from somebody who touches you on a date, kind of the date's over. So even if, dates are uncomfortable, they're full of all kinds of weird, booby traps and subtle cues and who knows, So let's just say hypothetically that when you put your hand on her back, she felt like, I'm not ready for this. This is going too fast. She may have known if she pulled away, it would have hurt you. It would have sort of like ruined everything. And she didn't want to do that. And she didn't want to say anything. And it is hard, I think, especially, she's 25, and I think like learning to speak up is hard. And sometimes people get better at it over time. Some people go through their whole life unable to do it. But that part she wasn't feeling. Then you thought maybe the first kiss had been too public, so you tried to do it more privately. And she ended up chatting through the first kiss. Here's what I'm hearing. I think she just wasn't that into you. She may have had trauma. She told you flat out that she wasn't feeling it. And so she had said, I want to take things slow. I'm not feeling it. And I would just take her words at face value. I think that if I had to guess, and you're asking me to sort of interpret what I can from this, that's what it was. She wasn't feeling it. And it's, sadly, it's so entirely possible. We've all done it, where you just love somebody. They're just so beautiful and amazing in what you want, but they don't feel it back. And that's why we have literature and tragedies and theater and music. It's so much of it is about that very phenomenon. Unrequited love is so sad. So you tried to ask her the next day, this was so sad. You saw her crying in her car. So something about how you handled that hurt her, or she felt guilty. Like you were pretty private here about guilt tripping her sarcastically, but then you got really sad and you were in disbelief. Yeah, I'm sorry. It does hurt. So she was crying in her car. I hope you didn't hurt her feelings, lash out at her or anything. Because, CPTSD, we do that sometimes. So you drove home in total confusion, like you were having a breakdown. So this really touched something in you. This is the beautiful thing about people who break our hearts, is they open our hearts up enough that if we go get help, if we go seek our healing at that time, we have an opportunity that we don't have when everything's going great. So I'm really proud of you for reaching out for help right now. Having your heart cracked open is both terrible and an opportunity. All right, so try to stay with the opportunity, stay with this experience. You don't have to blot it out. The next day you tried to ask, and you got big text messages saying it wasn't anything you did. She just wasn't ready to date after all. It may have been true that she wasn't ready, but also I'm not ready to date is a classic thing that people say when they just don't want to hurt your feelings. And she knew you were hurt. So, that could very well be what it is. She is ready to date, but it's just, you're not the one. You're not the one for her. She wasn't feeling it. So that doesn't mean you did anything wrong. You don't have to go second guessing yourself. And then you say you stupidly made things worse, thinking you'd been too soft and not pushed things enough. And I'm just guessing you've watched some videos or been in some program where men are taught to do that. And I think there's a time and a place to be assertive. But I don't know, I just feel for you because obviously you didn't pick the right moment at all. You picked somebody who was already walking away. And that's okay. You can totally forgive yourself. By the way, if you ever want to try my daily practice techniques, I do these every day. I teach everybody to do it. It's so calming. And one of the things it's good for is for processing out all that, like, why did I say that? Why did I do that? Oh, we all have so much of that. And as a person with CPTSD, I'm telling you, I can't even have dinner with a group without sort of getting filled up with like remorse and self-consciousness about things I said. I use the daily practice to get free of it because it's an absolute waste of time, most of it. If there's ever anything I need to actually learn from, I can learn from it. So I think your takeaway is listen to the words of the person over any outside instruction you've had about pushing things. Allow yourself to enter into the early dating phase just with an open mind, just like, is this the person for me? Not they are the person for me. I'm going to try to move it from here to there. Just sitting there witnessing, like, what is this like? How does this person feel about me? What are they showing them about yourself? I think it's awesome though that you're willing to take the lead, and it's healthy to ask someone out. It's healthy to ask them to dinner if you met online. And so you are so much on the right track. But it's been months and you can't stop thinking about her. You're dating other women. It's going well. And women like you, but you can't stop thinking about this one person and you're wondering, is it limerence? And it could be teetering into that. This is somebody who declined to continue dating you. And yet you feel so much like it's the perfect person. Now, I've been there. That's not necessarily crazy of you to feel that way. At a certain point, if you wanted to, you could reach out and just let her know how you feel and see what happens. Okay? You could do that, but I would do it ever so lightly with no pressure for her to respond to you in a certain way or to respond at all. But just if you want to get an answer, like, was it a matter of timing? But just give a lot of space there. Chances are she would have gotten in touch with you if she felt like she had made a mistake and she wanted a do-over on that. So probably that's not what's going to happen. But I always encourage people, like, if you really can't get over something, just go ahead and state your case. If somebody has said no to you, though, I favor something like an email, really, where you can go into a little bit of detail and just be honest with them. And don't try to make yourself look so cool or disguise how you really feel. Like, just lay it out there. Be willing to look foolish. Because it's the avoidance of that honest expression of how we really feel. It just gets you a result that wasn't really the question. I was coaching somebody recently who has very strong feelings of somebody who hasn't demonstrated interest in them, but they just can't get over it. So I said, go ahead, reach out to them, send an email, say how you feel. But what they said was more like, how's it going? Just pretending to be a friend, right? And then you get a friendly reply, and all you've done is kind of opened it up for yet another year of limerent longing for somebody who's not with you. So it's much better to just like lay those grubby cards on the table and let them reject you fully if that's what they're going to do. The honest answer is a good answer, because when your heart is that tied up in somebody, you want the honest answer. Only honesty will do, right? And you then, like, inside your heart, your spirit will have its answer. And with that, like, okay, really, now even if you feel stupid, you have your answer and you can move forward without this but could it, what if I just, do whatever you have to do to get free and move on. And with respect for her and her boundary. So when there's like a great longing for somebody who's not available and it's going into limerence, this is how you can shut down limerence. Is you can start to have a great life. And it may not be right now a romantic relationship that's the fulfillment for you. So it's going to be a group of friends. It's going to be a friend who you do things you love with, or you get involved with something that's really meaningful and purposeful for you. Those are the things that fill you up, and then you have less of like a big trauma-shaped hole where the limerence can get in. Limerence strikes when your life sucks and it's sad and lonely and it's not very fulfilling. That's how it happens. And when you're not honest, and when you're not sharing with other people. If you can, be in friendship with other guys who you can be honest about this with. And there's this magic power. This is where magic actually does happen, is when you're honest with other people about your feelings. even though they're embarrassing to you, even if you feel silly telling people, even if you fear that they will judge you, you pick your people carefully so that they're not judgmental people. But being honest about these deep, dark feelings is how they begin. It's like shining sunlight on them. Sunlight is the best disinfectant. So if I used to call secret feelings snails, feeling snaily, you know, I just got these little, because, you know, I don't know about where you live, but I had a plant that had all these snails that lived in it, but where were they? Every morning I'd wake up and there'd be little tracks all over everything, including the sofa. And I was like, where were they? And the way they're just kind of like, they hide in the dark and they're just kind of like icky. That's how I felt about my hidden feelings. And so when you tell other people and you work on them with other people, it has a way of just kind of like dispelling the snails and things clear up. So I know it's not funny, but I feel a lightness of heart when I look back at the way I used to suffer, and I hope you will too one day. If anybody relates to this topic, I've got a video lined up about how to get clarity when you're confused about a relationship. Is it good? Is it not good? Is it real? Is it reciprocal? Here's how to get clarity, and I've got that video lined up right here, and I will see you very soon.